right. Hi, everyone. Thanks for being here. My name's Noah. This is the first time I've ever been to Berlin, but I've been a techno DJ for about 25 years now. And so I can tell you there's nothing that makes me more excited than talking about the future with cool people like you with techno music playing in the background. So I'd like to ask you to imagine a future. I'd like to imagine a future where we have 100% full automation. So everything that can be automated has been. All of the dull, dangerous, and dirty, and boring work that defines most of our economies and most of our daily lives at our jobs is done by machines and software agents. Our manufacturing is distributed and customized and clean. Our transport is fully automated and ride-sharing, so we have 100% of the city's mobility needs with less than 5% of the cars on the road. That means we have much less deaths, we have much smaller streets, we have much more room for parks and for housing and for creative urban environments. And our buildings are 3D printed and our infrastructure is robotically maintained. With all of our free time, of course, we're able to do the things that we as human beings do best and that we as individuals and communities love to do. Our basic needs are taken care of through a universal basic income. We have a shorter work week, and we spend our time on the things that really matter, like playing with our kids, being with our loved ones, pursuing research projects in art and science and technology exercises. Education is free to all globally, delivered through the best, most passionate professors who love what they do and do it well, and artificially intelligent tutors that's available to anyone, no matter where you are. And healthcare is also available to all through AI doctors and distributed pharmaceuticals and more holistic approaches to well-being. And perhaps most importantly, energy is 100% green and renewable. We've taken the challenges of climate change adaptation, and we've used that as an opportunity to regenerate our entire industrial approach, the way we live, the way our economies operate, so that we are now not only carbon neutral, but we learn from and work with nature. Okay, now, back to today. So we live in a world today where most companies make money selling dirty products, and dirty power, and sometimes with very dirty business models. We're at the beginning of what is looking like going to be a climate catastrophe. Just today, you probably read that 15% of the Antarctic ice shelf just broke off. It's about 500 billion tons of ice. It's a huge deal, and it's going to be getting worse and worse and worse. And on the social side of things, we face a world of total income inequality, where the gap between the wealthy and the people that have access to the benefits of society and the economy and those that don't is growing. And in response, there's a growing sense of anger, frustration, protest, and disillusionment with the elites and the governments that run most people's lives. So how do we get from here, where we are today, to there, to this space of possibility which I've just described, and which many of you might be working towards or have a version of in your own mind? So the traditional answer, depending on who you talk to, is, well, startups will save us. Now, I don't want to minimize the extremely important role that startups have in society and the economy. As many of you guys know, most of the most exciting work environments, most of the most exciting technology and business models is coming out of the entrepreneurial and startup space. But also, as those of you who are working in these more fundamental areas like education or healthcare or technology are learning, and this is certainly the case with many second and third generation founders in Silicon Valley who have reinvested their commercial gains that come from mobile or social media into these fundamental spaces, is that it's actually really, really, really hard, and you start to butt up against regulation and other stakeholders who have other purposes than just let's make money and let's sell product. So what about government? Where does government sit in this transformation from the world of today into the potential world of tomorrow? Historically, government is known as pretty boring and inefficient. In fact, that is often the case. Government's job in most societies has been diminished to being one of the regulator, the stabilizer, to prevent the worst case thing from happening. But if you look back to the origins of the 20th century, government has played a fundamental role in facilitating innovation on all the things that matter the most to us. My favorite example of this is the iPhone. So I hope you've read a book called The Entrepreneurial State by Mariana Mazzucato. She's an awesome, awesome economist. And in that book, she details the history of science and technology innovation in the economy, particularly focusing on Silicon Valley. And what you find is that all of the most fundamental science and technology breakthroughs of the 20th century have been invested in by government or directly researched and developed by government. The example she uses is the iPhone. So every technology in the iPhone, from the internet itself, to RAM, to GPS, to touchscreens, to radios, all of these things came from government-supported grants or direct government research. So what role does government play in facilitating this transformation? I'd like to share a couple of examples from Dubai in the United Arab Emirates, which is a little bit of a special place. I mean, I was talking to a friend of mine here, and Dubai as a country, so Dubai is one Emirates within the country, the United Arab Emirates. The whole country is less than 45 years old. So this room is older than the entire United Arab Emirates. And this offers many advantages, because you have a situation which has gone from a functionally the desert, quasi-Stone Age, to a global center of trade and commerce and aviation and increasingly innovation in a period of, let's say, the last really 20 years. And most of the focus on innovation and emerging technologies has really only taken place in the last 5 years. And it's special because it has a clean slate. It has a visionary leadership and centralized control, which enables you to focus on the things which are coming as opposed to the problems which we have from the past. So it might not necessarily be the case in all of the rest of the world, but I think nonetheless it offers a very interesting case study for how governments change. So I'm just going to share a couple of examples of how we in the Dubai Future Foundation, which is an organization which I help to create and run, explore this question of how do we create a better world? How do we facilitate entrepreneurship and innovation in the areas that matter the most and in the things that are most highly regulated when normally government is a barrier? So it all started about 5 years ago or so with a project called the Museum of the Future. This is a permanent building. This building is under construction right now, but it started as a series of pop-up exhibitions in conferences just like this, where we would look to what are the most interesting technologies that are emerging today. How will those be integrated into our lives in 10, 15 years when they reach maturity? And what happens if you integrate those with the most important public services of our lives, like education, healthcare, transportation, security, safety, etc., in a positive way, in an optimistic way, as opposed to necessarily a purely commercial means or a negative and fearful reactive way. So we do this by building these sorts of almost Disneyland-like immersive experiences. We work with technologists and designers and researchers and artists to forecast, to play forward in the form of speculative products and services what it might be like if we lived in a future, for, in this example, where your entire medical system, your entire public health system was distributed in an in-your-home bathroom. So this is just a little bathroom. You can go up to this mirror. This example is about 4 years old, so you probably have seen on Reddit, 5 or 6 examples of smart mirrors that you can build with an Arduino and a semi-reflective mirror. But what this user experience is all about, instead of lecturing the government and writing reports on what ubiquitous sensors and artificial intelligence in the healthcare system means and preventative proactive healthcare management means, you're able to wrap it up in this beautiful, easily approachable experience that anyone can go and experience without knowing anything about artificial intelligence or healthcare. So what this example shows is, you're brushing your teeth, you're getting ready for the day, and it's detecting what your body chemistry is like, how you've slept the night before, how your colleagues and friends are. And in this example, it says, oh, look, we noticed you've been working really hard this week, and you're pretty tired. You haven't been sleeping so well. 2 of your friends at work have a cold, so your chances of getting a cold are about 25% higher today. Should we put some more vitamin C in your breakfast? So this is modeling proactive, preventative health in a way which is warm and explicitly, not utopic, but what I like to call protopic. So it's a positive, optimistic view of how these technologies might work. And it changes the experience of going to the doctor from one that is anxious, anxiety-ridden, fearful, you have to book it in advance, you have to go out of your daily life, to something that's integrated in a very positive and beautiful way with our life. Now, this is interesting because what this does is it engages people in an emotional way without them even having to think about these words, right? These buzzwords, these jargon. And you start to get interesting reactions from people. So you notice we had this little metal plate which you touch from your hand. And this was a symbol to symbolize what it would be like to sort of check into your mirror in the morning. And people started coming up to us afterwards and being like, wait a second, who's scanning my data? Where's this going? I'm not quite sure I feel comfortable sharing my personal private information with this machine. And that's exactly the point, right? Like, we've been lecturing and briefing the policymakers for years on data privacy and issues around data verification and all of the things that we have to resolve, not only as consumers, but as citizens and as governments, to make these systems work for us all. And, frankly, nobody reads. So to have an experience which you can touch and get this spine-tingling sensation of like, wait, what's going on here? It provokes a conversation around these things which help us have a more informed decision. So it engages people in a way which you can't do with normal policy work. And the other one is it actually generates political demand. This is important because at the end of the day, politicians and CEOs, these are still powerful people. They have a lot of demands on their time. And by creating a compelling, attractive experience, you're actually generating the demand for this positive vision that you're creating. So this is an example of a classroom of the future for small children, a sort of early childhood education environment. And it's quite a simple exhibit. It's just a sand table with a Kinect and a projector on top. And as you build up a little sand mountain, digital snow creates at the top of the mountain, and you wave your hands, and digital water falls into the valley, and you can dig a ditch, and the water flows through the ditch, and you can put a piece of wood in there, and it creates a dam and generates electricity, and a city grows. So you're able to communicate in a completely nonverbal and social way all of the best things we know about how kids really learn. They learn through getting their hands dirty, literally. They learn through working together, by playing, by problem solving as a group, without ever mentioning the words geology or weather or ecology or hydrology or any of these things. So what's interesting is when we took the Minister of Education on a tour of this, he looked at this and was like, oh, this is great, I get it. I'll take 300 of these. And I was thinking, oh my God, like he doesn't really understand this. Like, Your Excellency, this is not real. This is just a demonstration of what might be possible in the future. And he looked at me like I was the idiot, and he was like, what am I paying you for? Like, make me 300 of these, right? So this is where we learn this lesson that actually you can create these experiential prototypes, these worlds that are so, obviously we knew it wasn't real, but it communicates so powerfully the positive potential of this kind of new way of doing things that people want it. Not just politicians, not just financiers, but citizens and users and those of us in our daily lives. So once you generate these demands with these inspiring visions of the future in the form of these immersive, speculative future experiences, you have to follow up with them, right? So the second part of the thing that we do in the Future Foundation is we fulfill this demand, we act on this demand by creating what I like to call bold prototypes. And the speaker before me was very, very aptly said, a picture is worth 1,000 words, but I like to say a prototype is worth 1,000 pictures. So an example here is the 3D printed office which we built. It's actually the world's first, and I believe only, functional 3D printed building. This is, you can see it here being unloaded. It was printed by some partners in China, assembled on site. And to do this, not only did we learn that all of the millions of answers to the millions of questions we didn't even know we had to ask, because no one in Dubai had ever done this before. In fact, no one had ever done this before. How does the concrete bond with the drywall, and where does the electricity go, and how do you get the water out? All these questions were not only brought to our mind, but also then answered. And that built a capability and a capacity in our construction community that positions Dubai as a sort of leading indicator or a leading example of how these technologies might deploy. So this is the office here. You can see it. About half of our staff works in it. That's Emirates Towers there in the background. I would love for you guys to come all visit. We teach courses and classes in there now. And the thing that's powerful about this is once you generate a vision, and then you fulfill on that vision by demonstrating its real potential through an actual physical artifact or an object or a service, that then begs the question of, okay, what next? So when we open this building for the Prime Minister, he says, good job, where's my next 100,000? So it evokes this question of, well, what's the bigger picture here? And working then with municipality, we developed a 3D printing strategy for Dubai, which now is law, so that starting in 2019, you won't be able to get a building permit in Dubai unless 2% of your building is 3D printed. And that'll start with doorknobs and lampshades, and then every year we'll increase that percentage 2%, year on year on year on year, until we reach the target. So in less than 15 years now, 25% of every single building that's built in Dubai will have to be 3D printed. So that's how you're making a market around this. As a result, we've seen this massive influx of people coming in and saying, God, I never knew you could do that. I want one of those. And people who have been dedicating their lives and their companies and their careers to doing 3D printing are like, this is what I've been waiting for my entire life. Somebody's willing to take the risk to let this thing be built, right? I'll tell you a little secret. This building is actually, technically, the building permit is as a tent, right? It's a concrete building, right? 3D printed cement. But we got the permit from the civil defense guys as if it were a temporary structure as a tent, because there was no law for 3D printed materials. So we're operating in this sort of pre-legal space where you have to have the permission of a champion and the people who are going to deliver on that to create something new and awesome. We did the same with self-driving vehicles and the Road Transport Authority. We helped develop the Road Transport Authority's self-driving car strategy, which commits 25% of all trips will be autonomous by 2030. I think this is the only autonomy target of any city in the world. And I speak a lot, and I've never heard anybody contradict me on that. So I'm just going to run with it, right? And you see, now some of this is profoundly influential. Some of this ends up becoming quite trivial. So you probably have heard some news about 3D, like flying taxis and all sorts of stuff. Nobody really knows how to achieve these targets, and that's the point, right? You're trying to stimulate passionate people who think they have an approach to this to come and try it out. And also the one that I'm most proud about is the blockchain strategy, which we worked with some of our partners to develop. And this commits the government of Dubai to have 100% of its transactions on the blockchain by 2020. Now, for those of you who know anything about blockchain, like, there's no such thing as the blockchain, right? So we now have dozens of companies and dozens of government departments exploring what this means. And if you're dealing with highly secure information, that'll be a permission blockchain that might then interface with a public record. If it's open stuff like who owns what houses, that might be a public blockchain. There's a million ways this is going to work itself out. But by setting this ambitious target and demonstrating through a series of pilot projects and prototypes that it can be done, you're building experience and facility with these emerging technologies, confidence in the people that do this, and most importantly for political leadership, they get the recognition and reward for being visionaries, and because you've done it in a small scale, they don't think they're going to lose their job by screwing up in public. Right, so you're building confidence at every scale of the system. One of the ways we do that now, as we're looking at how do you extend and deepen this kind of innovation so that it lasts longer, is with a program we call the Dubai Future Accelerators. Personally, I think that's kind of a terrible name because we're not accelerating anything other than your ability to do your job with the transformational technology with the regulators and operators of that space. So I'm running out of time, but I think the question here is, what does this mean for the rest of the world? Like, first and foremost, Dubai is clearly establishing itself as perhaps the global center for testing these pre-legal emerging technologies. If you have a company or a product which involves anything that requires regulation, then you will rarely find a better champion than the government of Dubai because it aligns with the strategic vision and the momentum that we've been able to create. So the Future Accelerators program is that approach. Now, regardless of where you live, we're facing profound transformations in the next 10 years. Between AI and climate and inequality, unless government, and I put the target on government here, adapts to and accelerates these transformations in a positive way that benefits all, that's not just a commercial play, we're going to face serious disruption. And not in the happy, good feeling Silicon Valley sense, like in the wars and famine sense. So I'd like to invite you guys all, the round for the Dubai Future Accelerators is now open. Go to DubaiFutureAccelerators.com for the next 3 weeks. If you have a technology which can help change the world and you want to get a citywide prototype with a partner who will champion it, we'll fly you out to Dubai. It's extremely competitive. We have like less than 1% acceptance rate and thousands from around the world. But we'll fly you to Dubai starting in October, and you get the chance to help change the world starting in Dubai. So thanks, guys.